everybody. I am Daryn Carp, Mother God, here with John Thrasher, Father God, or whatever. Yeah, okay. Like
What do you
we're
think I'm doing? Look.
shaking and disturb, shaken
Yes,
and
good job.
disturb.
Have
Thank
we
you.
ever, by the way, this is for people who are watching us on either Patreon or YouTube, so sorry
Smash
about
that
that.
subscribe button.
Yep, if you're listening, you don't get it. I was doing a shaken and disturbed charades. Have we ever played charades? I'm trying to think. We've
I don't
probably done
think so. We'd
something on
probably
the
be pretty good at
show.
it.
Yeah, oh yeah, we would totally be really good at it.
I think we'd be good at it. But no, I don't
Yeah.
think we've done that on the show.
Well, speaking of games, let's jump right
Yes.
into something. I wanted to mention, you guys, everybody listening, we don't have a date confirmed. We don't have details, and we don't have
Oh,
anything set in stone yet. But we wanted to let you know
but we
now,
can
but we
announce.
can announce we are going to be doing an interactive live stream of some sort. We can't give any details just yet for everybody, not just Patreon. Although you guys on Patreon will get special access and the first to know as you do. We're going to be doing something fun in October, likely on a Wednesday, maybe in October.
Something of that
Um,
sort.
yeah, so just be aware that we're working on something really fun for everyone. If you're listening to this right now, you can participate. If you are a Patreon subscriber of any tier, you're going to have a special access and maybe like a first access to what we're doing. We're working on it in the background. We are really excited about it. It will be really fun. We haven't done an interactive live stream in a while. We've had to kind of move around that for various reasons, but it's spooky season. We got to get back out here and meet and talk
It's
to you guys.
spooktacular. Spocktober.
It's not technically when we're
Shocktober. Ah,
Shocktober.
that's
It's
right.
not technically spooky season yet, is it? Do you feel like it's spooky season?
Once September hits, I mean, like I
Yeah.
was in the supermarket, it was like Halloween candy. It's
I know
I would
that's
say
exactly what I was
Labor
thinking.
Day to Halloween, and then November 1 is Thanksgiving, Christmas. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
true.
the whole last, what is it, quarter of the year is
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah, that's true.
That's it.
I will say, you just mentioned the stores. I've been in like, a couple different places. Like I've been in the mall and like I talked on NMR recently about all the cool Bath and Body Works Halloween stuff that's out and available now. I love it. I'm so tempted to keep buying Halloween decorations because I just want my apartment to feel super cutesy. And I haven't yet because I just feel like it's too
You
warm. It
have a
doesn't
black cat, just
I do have a black cat that I need to
FYI.
really maximize his potential and make some money from. Things
Smart.
are happening in that regard. Maybe he'll have merchandise in the near future. Who's to
Oh,
say?
that would be interesting for him.
Yeah,
I
that
would buy
who's to
some
say?
magic merch.
Yeah, magic merch, TBD.
It's not Magic
But
Mike. Magic Mike, it's Magic Merch.
that's right. But yes, guys, be mindful that in October we would love to see your beautiful faces. Hopefully you'll want to see ours. And it'll be let's just tease it now. There will be a game element. Okay.
Yes, our favorite. Our
Our
favorite.
favorite. We love hosting games, and like I said, everybody can join, even if you're not a subscriber to the podcast. If you know a friend that wants to join in, we would love to see those people as well. So anyway, more to come on that later this month, probably. But we're really excited. We want to get back into the habit. Maybe Daryn, if it's
Definitely.
close enough to Halloween, we do another dress up Halloween where I'm Wanda
Mm.
Maximoff and you're a bag of leaves. What do you think?
I think Bag of Leaves was my best. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Oh wait,
someone,
we've done multiple. I just realized because one year I was
yes.
Dead Dorothy. Remember Dead Dorothy?
How could I forget? Still haunts. Still haunts
Still
my,
haunts.
still
Still
haunts.
haunts. Yeah.
Still haunts,
Anyway,
yes.
that's our little intro. Daryn, let's get into this week's case. It's an interesting one. It's a scary one, honestly, in a lot of ways.
And it
So,
takes place in a great town to me. Okay, so our
okay.
case begins in Rosebud, Texas, which is
Oh,
a small farming town near central Texas. Around his peers, Kenneth McDuff, another great name. He was the town bully. His high school principal once described him as a habitual liar and a
oh,
thief.
oh,
Not
great.
great, not great superlatives to have in high school.
No, definitely not. From the principal, no less.
Right, from the principal. So obviously that is not a first-time offender. Now,
Yeah.
with an enabling mother, his actions were normally excused by her. Around town, she obtained the nickname, quote, Pistol Packin' Mama.
A lot of people have called me that
I
as
still
well.
do. I still do
Yeah.
Pistol Packin' Mama. Now, the
Yeah, that's
nickname
right.
stemmed from an incident where she threatened a school bus driver with a gun after the driver had kicked Kenneth's twin brother off the bus.
Okay.
Do not mess with the lion's cubs there.
That's right. That's
Do
right.
not mess with them. Now, from that day onward, it was rumored that her gun became a normal accessory for her daily life. On the whole, members of the community were scared enough of the McDuffs that the family was able to get away with a lot of bad behavior. I probably would too.
Yeah, like to make
Left
another
the
euphemism here, don't poke the lion, as they say.
or the bear. Oh,
Yeah, or
either
the
one.
bear.
Either
That's of
one.
course what I meant.
Yeah, I know.
They
I,
listen, where you're from, they say don't poke the bear. I say where I'm from, don't poke the lion. Okay? Just let
okay,
me
six
live.
of one,
Yeah.
half a dozen.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
at home, his enabling mother and Kenneth's father had an explosive temper and would often take this out on the children. However, while his
Right.
parents brutally beat the other five children,
Mm.
Kenneth was placed on a pedestal, touted as his mother's sweetest and favorite. So the mom has some influence, I guess, on who the father beats to shit. So interesting dynamic
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Kenneth
I'm
dropped out,
just yeah.
sighing at the disappointment of these terrible people. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Kenneth dropped out of school in the ninth grade after losing a fight to one of the student athletes who called him out on his bad behavior. And shortly after that, he was arrested for a string of robberies and burglaries, but was released on parole after only 9 months. Kenneth soon befriended Roy Dale Green after his release while working for his father's concrete business. Known to be dim witted and weak willed, Roy was the sort of man who would take violence out on his mother's chickens with a wooden
Ugh.
broomstick handle. Don't like that very much. Now,
No.
Roy kept his broomstick handle in the back of his car just to use willy nilly.
Yeah, I want to go back to, I mean, that's horrible. Like, you know, to take things out on animals like that is a specific type of person, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
You have to really be brought up in a horrifying way. But I want to go back to the point where you were making about him dropping out of school after losing a fight with one of the students there who called him out on his bad behavior. So like when even your peers, like even the students that you're going to school with are like sick of your shit, like you're such an annoying shithead that I'm
Yeah.
gonna fight you to get you to shut the hell up. And by the way, he's a kid. Let's be clear. At this point, he's a child. Kids go through things. It sounds like his family has a very scary and unfortunate background, which I'm sure is part of his upbringing as well. But when even the people you're going to school with are just trying to get you to stop acting out, that's never a
Right. When
good
the kids
sign.
are policing you, that's when you know it's
Exactly.
annoying for everyone because kids usually have a higher tolerance than the adults
Yeah,
for.
exactly. That's great. You put that very well. So anyway, on Saturday, August 6th, 1966, Kenneth and Roy finished work at the concrete business and decided to head to Fort Worth together to quote, look for girls.
Oh,
Listen,
something
guys
you
won't be
don't
guys.
do.
I
Yeah.
have never left work and looked for girls. No, definitely not.
Spice Girls,
Unless
maybe,
unless
but
it was
not
the
just
Spice Girls and I was
right.
going to their concert at Wembley Stadium in
Right. Or some
2019.
like superhero convention. If like the girls are Pokemon, you've looked for
Not
girls several
even. Yeah.
times. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but not even that.
Never
You
die.
know what I mean? Yeah, definitely not ever something I've been familiar with. Well, anyway, on their way, they drove through Everman, Texas, where they came across a trio of young people who had parked their car at a local baseball field to listen to music. Edna Louise Sullivan, Mark Dunham, and Robert Brand, who was the owner of the vehicle, were hanging out, just enjoying their evening. Again, it's a nice August day in
Sure.
Texas. This isn't very unusual. This was before, Snapchat and the internet and everything. People actually congregated and hung out together. It's a crazy idea
It's
out there.
nuts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, a chance for mischief definitely had presented itself, and the two young men pounced on the opportunity. They seemed like real shitheads. Let's just put it that way. Kenneth and Roy pulled their car over, and the two silently sneaked around the car with Roy, who was wielding his broken broomstick handle.
I don't
Do
like
you
where this is going.
Yeah,
Yep,
do you
yep,
know
yep,
where
yep.
this is going? Remember that this was used against the chickens. Well, Kenneth, however, carried a 38 caliber revolver in his hand as he threw open the door of the teen's car. And he threatened the terrified kids, insisting that he would shoot them if they didn't get out of the car and comply with his orders. He ordered them to climb into the trunk of the car and told Roy to follow in his vehicle. First of all, The thought of being told to get into the trunk of a car, especially in 1966, where they didn't have like emergency release
Nope,
hatches or anything like
nope,
that. I just, I hate that. The feeling of that is so horrible.
nope.
Um, so Kenneth pulled the car over in a remote area and ordered Louise out of the trunk first. Kenneth acknowledged that the two boys remaining in the trunk, excuse me, acknowledged the two boys remaining in the trunk and told Roy, quote, "We can't leave any witnesses. I'm going to have to knock them off." So this went from like maybe a little bit of like a mischievous moment, like just to cause a scene and be a shithead, as I just said, to now there's going to
So
be
aptly, yes.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. It's a scholarly analyzation there, analysis. Two, this is now going to be a crime involving probably murder. So,
Well, the young men obviously pleaded for their lives. Roy didn't realize how serious Kenneth was until he shot Brand twice at point
wow.
blank range. Dunham tried to shield himself, but Kenneth grabbed him by the hair and shot him.
Wow.
Kenneth and Roy abandoned the car, kidnapped Louise, and proceeded to sexually assault her in the backseat of their car.
Ugh.
I could kind of see that coming. Roy then
Yeah,
forced Louise to
exactly.
lay down on the ground and strangled her with the broomstick. So just the sheer
Yeah.
force of that is so disturbing. And when her body went limp, the men threw her body over a fence, and Kenneth choked her lifeless body once more just to make sure the deed was done.
Ugh.
They hid her body amongst some bushes and began their journey back to Rosebud, only stopping at a gas station for sodas. Upon
Yeah.
returning, Kenneth buried the revolver behind Roy's home and stayed there for the night. So interesting that they would bury the weapon like close to their home. You'd think they would just kind of like choose a random part of like a sidewalk or something, or like somewhere on a person's lawn. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like
Why
so
there?
close to why there? The next morning on Sunday, the McDuffs were summoned to a quote unquote family meeting where they were all enlisted to help wash the evidence out of the car.
Wow.
Kenneth's
So
father
they're
said
sharing the details, it
they're
sounds like.
they're in it apparently. I
Yeah.
guess I guess enabling and him being the best of the best in their family. I
Oh,
guess he
right.
can
Good
do no
point.
wrong. Now Kenneth's father set fire to the car's carpet to erase any trace of Louise Sullivan. Back, you have to be some interesting parents to be like, hey, let's get rid of this crime scene where I just like
Yeah.
assaulted this girl and killed her.
Right.
But okay. Now back in Fort Worth, Robert Brand's parents grew concerned when he didn't come home that night. It felt out of character for their son not to return without notice, and the bodies of Brand and Dunham soon were located in the hijacked car.
Yeah, and Darren, what are your thoughts? I know you've talked about this before, but like, you know, parents who know that their children have committed crimes, you've sometimes said that you kind of understand where they're coming from because most parents
Yeah,
would
like the
protect
Brian
their
laundry.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the sorry to interrupt. Yeah, the Brian like
Yeah.
laundry incident. This is a little like they seem. I mean, granted, maybe we don't know all the details. Maybe there was some resistance, but I understand sort of protecting your kid in that way,
Yeah.
but I and maybe not giving them up, but I don't understand necessarily just like completely in
Yeah.
cahoots where we're gonna burn evidence. Like I understand
Right.
maybe I'm
That's
not gonna go to
different.
the cops, but like your problem, kid.
Yeah, now you're part of the crime because you're
Right.
destroying evidence and trying to, hide a crime or a
I
murder.
wouldn't get myself involved in it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, as Darren mentioned, the bodies were soon located in that hijacked car. Now, this event sparked a media frenzy across the state of Texas, with former CBS crime reporter Bob Schieffer quickly covering what would then become called the Broomstick Murders.
Ugh.
Schieffer stated in an interview, quote, "I still remember it because it's the worst thing I ever saw." End quote. Once the headlines and outlets began reporting it, apparently Roy broke down and confessed to his mother, who made him turn himself in.
Hmm.
According to Schieffer, quote, "Roy couldn't hold it in," end quote, and told detectives everything he knew about the murders. Isn't it interesting? Like you can participate in this stuff and like, and,
Almost like
and
you're in a
do these,
trance.
yeah, and like do these horrific crimes and like you're watching the life of somebody like, drain from them. But then when it comes time to hide, like, you just simply can't hold it in. You have to tell the murders, and, like, it's just fascinating to me the way the brain works in that
I
regard.
agree. I agree. And it can really there are so many things that are sort of inexplicable because everyone is so different on how they would
Yeah.
react. And those can still be honest reactions even if we don't understand it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting how you can be complicit in one breath and then totally kind of turn on your
Yeah.
posse the next. Yeah.
Right. Well, it became apparent to authorities that Roy and Kenneth were opposite sides of a coin. Kenneth was the instigator, while Roy was an easily swayed accomplice. Unlike Roy, Kenneth remained silent upon his arrest. Roy
Huh.
became the key witness to their murder investigation and even helped police find Luis's body, which I believe, as you just mentioned, was the
That's
one
good.
that was thrown over the fence or whatever.
Correct. Yes.
In court, Kenneth tried to sell a narrative that Roy had committed the murders and was attempting to frame him. However, the jury just did not find this believable due to the clearly different demeanors of the two men. Kenneth was stone cold and unapologetic, while Roy seemed to have become a shell of a man. His remorse was obvious throughout the testimony that he provided in court and even brought some of the members of the jury to tears,
And
which isn't something you really hear about too
I was
often.
gonna say this is one of those qualities that I think ChatGPT, even some like serial killers, they just can't understand the humanity of people.
Yeah.
And humanity is sort of like hard to fake. I think you can fake
Yeah.
empathy and I think you can fake tears, but humanity is something that's really, really easy to, I think, kind of sniff out when it's being inauthentic. And I think that's one of the reasons when we feel manipulated, it's even worse because it does
Yeah.
feel like so hard to be manipulated by these people that I think it would be hard for Kenneth and Roy to have just two very different reactions to this because it seems like Roy is more in touch with his humanity than Kenneth is for sure.
And tell listeners what how you would describe humanity specifically in this situation. Like, what do you mean
I
by
just
that?
think like sort of honest to character. I think you can't really hide
Yeah.
being shaken by
Got
something
it. Yeah.
that you feel genuine remorse and sadness for what
Mm,
is going on. And maybe that doesn't mean tears, but there's some sort of effect that it has had on you
yeah.
that shows that you've regretted something that you did.
Yeah.
I think
That's fair.
I think that there's like an honesty in committing it, but also honesty and understanding that what you did do was a mistake
Right.
or something that wasn't part of your
That's fair.
actual character. I think
Yeah.
that's how I would probably describe it.
Yeah.
But
That's good. That's interesting.
it's a nuanced, I think, thing, and it's one of
I
those.
agree.
It's like that Supreme Court judge who was like, I can't describe porn, but I kind of know it when I see it, and it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I could describe it for you. Like, there's not one thing that it
Oh,
is,
okay. Yeah. I see
but
what
you
you
sort
mean.
of know it when you see it. You know.
When did his
Now,
what case was that? We should look
I
that. I
think
want
it
to look
was. Hold
that
on,
up.
I'm gonna show you.
Darren's gonna look it up. I'm
Um,
like, Supreme Court judge talking
know it
about
when I see it. Maybe it was
not
that Brandeis guy. Let me see. The phrase "I know it when I see it" is a colloquial expression by which your speaker to. Hold on.
Darren's looking it up.
Yeah, I shall not today. Okay, this was by Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart to describe his threshold test for obscenity in
Hmm.
Jacobellis versus Ohio, and he says, "I shall not today attempt further to define the kinds of material I understand to be embraced within that shorthand description." Hardcore pornography, and perhaps I could never succeed in intelligibly doing so, but I know it when I see it, and the motion picture involved in this case is not that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. So,
Thank you to
okay.
Harry Potter, who was
Okay.
apparently
Potter
a
Stewart.
Supreme Court justice. Thank you for that.
So, back to
Back
the
to this
case.
case.
Well, the jury panel deliberated for hours on this. Kenneth refused to stand as the court was ready to give the verdict. Not a
Wow.
good sign.
Not a
He
good
was
sign.
he was found guilty of the murder of Robert Brand and was sentenced to death via electric chair, referred to back then as Old Sparky. So
Oh boy.
lovely. Roy pled guilty to the murder of Louis Sullivan and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He was
Hmm.
later relocated to a hospital after, quote, seeing visions and losing sleep. Perhaps his conscience is getting the better of him. Roy was released in 1979 after serving 13 of the 25 years. I imagine part of it was for good behavior. Kenneth was kept in prison for a decade longer than Roy before being paroled himself in October of 1989. Kind of shocked about
Wow.
that.
That is shocking. Yeah.
3 days after his release, the body of Seraphia Parker was found in Temple, Texas. Although Kenneth was not charged for this crime, he was soon returned to prison after making death threats in Rosebud. And
Okay.
prior to his next parole hearing, Kenneth's mother paid off two attorneys in return for them, quote, evaluating her son for release. Okay.
Okay.
Kenneth was paroled again in December of 1990 and
1990.
flew under the radar for the better part of a year. And on October 10th, 1991, Kenneth picked up a sex worker, Brenda Thompson. Once she was in his car, Kenneth tied Brenda up. Unbeknownst to Kenneth, however, his car happened to be parked a mere 50 feet from a police checkpoint, and Brenda realized help was nearby and tried to get to the officer's attention by repeatedly kicking the windshield until it began to crack as Kenneth sped away.
Oh my God.
Brenda caught officers' attention and they followed in hot pursuit of Kenneth's car. This is just smart thinking on Brenda.
Yeah, it
Authorities
is.
lost the car, though, when Kenneth turned off the main road into a wooded area and turned off his lights. Brenda's whereabouts remained unknown for 8 years.
Mm.
A few days after his encounter with Brenda, another sex worker, Regina Moore, also fell victim to Kenneth's violence.
It's one of those things where like turning off the road and turning off your lights, like you think that only works in movies as like a storytelling point, but like back then, maybe it is all that it took, you know?
I
Nonetheless,
know it's very sad either way.
yeah, as Daryn was mentioning, Regina Moore also fell victim to Kenneth's violence. After the pair was seen fighting at a motel, he took her in his truck, where he tied her up, killed her, and dumped her body in the woods. So clearly, he should not have been let go. He should not have been paroled. We know that his mother had
Right. She
had a part
bribed
in
him
making
off.
that
So,
happen.
right, exactly. So,
Well, Regina and Brenda's bodies were recovered from the woods until they were not, excuse me, recovered in the woods until they were discovered in 1998. It's believed Kenneth was also responsible for the death of a woman named Cynthia Gonzalez, who was found dead in a creek within the
Jesus.
same wooded terrain 6 days after she'd been reported missing. 2 months later, in December of 1991, Kenneth enlisted another partner in crime, Alva Honk. Excuse me, Hank. I'm really like getting my words mixed up. And
I
his,
I would do the same thing, and for some reason I read it kind of the same way you
yeah,
did, but for some reason you're saying Elba like a accented Hank is so
yeah,
funny.
Honk Worley. Okay. I was getting the O and Worley
It's
mixed
Tom
into Hank.
Honks.
Yeah, it's Tom Hanks. I'm suddenly British. No, the name is Alva Hank Worley. Okay. The pair, were up to no good as well. The pair kidnapped
Yeah.
a woman named Colleen Reed at a local car wash
Uh,
in front of at least half a dozen witnesses.
I just got my car washed for the first time by
That's
myself
right.
ever, so this is really hitting me. Okay.
Go listen to NMR. Daryn
Yes.
describes it in detail, you guys. But in April of 1992, Alva was apprehended by authorities and admitted that Kenneth raped Colleen and
Mm.
burned her with lit cigarettes. And but that Alva himself did not participate in that actual murder. So this is what Alva's saying. Now, Kenneth's next victim was Valencia Joshua, a sex worker who was last seen approaching Kenneth's door on February 24th, 1992. Apparently, Kenneth strangled Valencia. Her body was discovered nearly a month later on March 15th on a golf course,
Jesus.
which is random. So in February of 1992, a young pregnant woman named Melissa Northrup also went missing. She was last seen at the convenience store where she worked. As detectives searched for her, a college friend of Kenneth's contacted police with a strange report saying that Kenneth had attempted to enlist his help in robbing Melissa's convenience store. Melissa's body was found by a local fisherman 2 months after her disappearance on April
Jesus.
26th. So there's a common thread in all these people that we just mentioned.
Absolutely. And a major problem was occurring unbeknownst to law enforcement. All of the incidents were spread out throughout different jurisdictions of Texas.
Yeah.
Now, this led to several simultaneous investigations with a single victim taking place, leaving police clueless that many of these incidents could all be traced back to one perp. This is why a
Right,
task
right.
force probably would have been helpful. However, Kenneth eventually caught the attention of police. He was peddling drugs and was in possession of an illegal firearm. You kind of hope that these people are stupid enough to make a mistake at some point, because it is hard
Right.
to tie all these murders happening in different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
When one jurisdiction finally issued a warrant for his arrest, they began to slowly link the disparate cases together. And with Alva's confession to Colleen's kidnapping, the search for Kenneth gained momentum. Kenneth had fled Texas to Kansas City, Missouri, where he went by the name Richard Fowler.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense that he would like, fled this or flee the state. That's something you usually see when people realize the police are on to them to some capacity. Well, on May 1st, 1992, a coworker of Richard, again, that was the new name that he started to go by. This person's name was Gary Smithy, was watching the television program America's Most Wanted.
Love that show. Miss that show. My
Me
mom
too.
and
I
I
used
used to
to
watch that together.
same when I was young. As it happened, Kenneth's crimes were one of the featured cases that night. Gary was disturbed by how similar Kenneth looked to his friend Richard. And actually, he called the tip line to make a report. And on May 4th, 1992, a surveillance team of 6 officers arrested Kenneth as he drove to a landfill south of Kansas City. The arresting officers included Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas Parnell McNamara Jr., his brother, Deputy U.S. Marshal Mike McNamara, and Falls County Sheriff Larry Pamplin,
Lareth.
Lareth. I can't get anything right today. Whose fathers had arrested Kenneth in 1966. So that's an interesting thread there. Yeah.
Aha.
So they know, at this point, they at least have that connection that they can make
Right.
some sort of, thread there. So on June 26th, 1992, Kenneth McDuff was indicted on one count of capital murder for the death of Melissa Northrup, the pregnant convenience store clerk that we had mentioned. And on February 18th, 1993, Kenneth was once again sentenced to death.
Mm.
On November 17th, 1998, his long awaited execution was carried out via lethal injection. Obviously, the electric chair, I think by 98 was maybe not a thing, although I could be wrong about that actually, but nonetheless, this particular sentencing was lethal injection.
Let's see.
And after yeah, look that up. And then after a 33-year chase, the brutal murderer was finally put to rest in the state of Texas. And Texas was frankly finally rid of their biggest bully turned cold-blooded killer. What'd you find out? Anything?
No state has used the electric chair as a method of execution since 2013, but the electric chair was the most common method of execution until the mid 1980s when lethal
Mm,
injection became more widely accepted.
got it.
So I don't think
That
it's
makes
been
sense.
banned across the board, but I just don't think people use it as
Yeah,
maybe they feel like it's not as humane. Um, what what a prolific killer in this way, but at the same time, you'd kind of think, what are the parents' responsibility here? I mean, the mother
I know.
bailed him out um in more
Well,
kind of ways than one and sort of enabled this horrible shitty behavior. So it's again, I understand kind of protecting your kid. I don't understand enabling your kid to do that.
yeah, and I think there's another conversation here that we've talked about a lot too, which is nature versus nurture. How much of this was he born with as a bully in high school, in elementary, middle, and high school? Like, and we know a little bit about his upbringing and the type of home life he was having. Like, was this
Totally.
kind of exacerbated by him just being that type of person at home? Probably.
Yeah, but you'd kind of think that because now that they know that the mom bribed these people overseeing
Right.
his,
Right.
you'd think that she would be on the you'd think that she would get
Yeah.
with obstruction of justice, and then those two people would be off for obstruction of justice or something like that, whatever the
Something.
I don't know. It's unfortunate that
Yeah, it
so many other
is.
women specifically had to die because of this, but
I know, a long trail of bodies, unfortunately, but at least some justice could have been served there. Well, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Hit us up at Thrasher and at Carpe Daryn. Hit us up on our Facebook page. We're on Patreon, and even add your comment below on YouTube if you're watching us there.
thank
Daryn, let's get
you.
into some listener shout
Yeah,
outs.
we have some comments from our YouTube channel on the Scott Peterson case. This was quite a conversation that I feel like I'm still having in a good way. Norn Iron for You said,
Yeah.
I'm still sold on him doing it, but I'm behind his team getting DNA evidence from the blood in the van and anything they found in the van to verify who was in there. So,
Yeah.
right. I mean, that's a perfectly legitimate reason to have that. Why wouldn't you? The evidence should speak for itself. Why wouldn't you want that tested? So, I
Right.
definitely agree with you, Norn Iron for You.
Yeah, and another comment on our YouTube channel, Lori Hightower 1730 said, quote, too many lies, too many coincidences. Also, during his police interview, he's talking about her in the past tense. He knew she was gone, end quote. So there's still a lot of debate about
Totally.
his innocence, and I feel like
Granted
that's
odd
always
behavior.
gonna happen. Yeah.
Granted odd behavior, but again, for me, I would hope To put me away or to put someone I love away, I would have to need more than just language outside of like, oh,
Yeah.
if I didn't do this, you know. So, well, obviously, guys, if you haven't yet, you should hit subscribe on YouTube, either top of me or below me.
Mhm.
I can't remember which. You can watch
It's
this episode
below.
every single week if you prefer to see our pretty faces, specifically mine.
Yeah, yours. It's
Yeah,
definitely not mine.
thank you.
But you can also get it several days earlier than everybody else if you sign up as a Sussy Radish on Patreon. You can also sign up for as little as $5 a month or even cheaper if you sign up annually.
Ooh, and we love the community that you guys have built on Patreon. Thank you so much. All the Beanie Babies are making me super happy. You are our
Happily. We can't
absolute
speak
happily.
today. What's
We
going
can't.
on?
I
This
blame
is
the Celsius that you said was going to kill me last episode. So the
I know
Diet Coke is,
we have a
I don't
Diet
know.
Coke and a Celsius, but there's
Carbonation is
nothing
not our
there's
friend.
something going on tonight.
But thank you
That's
guys so
okay.
much. You're our absolute favorites.
That's right. And as I've said
Yes.
recently, instead of taking your vitamins, make sure that you take your Zyrtec. It is allergy season after all.
It's always allergy season for John. And John, remember, please cook the hot dogs before you cook them. Like before you eat them, like please cook
Wait,
them
what?
because you keep
Yeah.
eating raw weenies out of the
No.
package.
No, I
And
don't.
yeah,
That is
okay.
so gross. You need a new tag. You need a new sign off. This
Are
is
you sure?
grossing me out.
Because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that the paparazzi catches you eating
Mm,
those raw weenies on the daily.
never. Never.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you guys next
Okay.
time. Bye.
Bye.